These are all the books I read in October. Let's talk about them. For my wrap-ups, I usually go in order of my least favorite to my most favorite books, but I really didn't read a lot in October. I had a lot going on in my life. I traveled twice. Taylor Swift's new album came out. It was just a chaotic month, so I didn't get as much reading in as I hoped to, but I did read some good books. But because I didn't read as much, I'm just going to kind of talk about them in different groupings that make sense in my brain instead of going in that kind of order. Also, everything was pretty much around a 3 or 4 star this month, at least just from memory from looking at these. I think they're all pretty much 3 or 4 stars, so it wouldn't really make much sense anyway to rank them because I was pretty much enjoying everything I read in October, which is a good win. First up, I'll talk about the 3 books that I read for a vlog that I did where I was reading horror books that originally started on the No Sleep subreddit. If you want to see my full experience with these books, hear my full thoughts on these books, hear me dissect these books, go into spoilers on some of these books with warnings of where those spoilers are, then you can check out that video. I will have it linked down below in my description box, but I will also briefly tell you about my experience with all of these 3 books. First, we have Penpal by Dathan Auerbach. I was not really sure what to expect with this story. The synopsis of it is very vague and it is kind of hard to figure out what it is going to be about, but essentially what you are following in this book is this man's reflections on his boyhood, his childhood. He is having recollections of things that happened to him when he was a kid, from the age of kindergarten to his teenage years, and piecing back together these weird experiences he had, and it is slowly weaving together the puzzle for himself and for you, the reader, as to what creepy things happened to him in his childhood. This is one of those books that has grown on me over time, and I think that makes sense because what I talked about with this book in the reading vlog is the only thing that I was really struggling with was the writing style of this book. I wasn't fully enjoying, and it does change over time because this story was published in chapters on the subreddit and then it was pieced together as a book later, like all of these books were that are in that vlog, and so it totally makes sense how that happened and how the writing style changes over time. But there were certain points where I really didn't like the writing style. There were other parts where I did, and so while I was in it, I was being really nitpicky about that, but overall I did still enjoy the experience of this book and I thought it was interesting, and there were some really good creepy moments in it. I do think this book has really good bones. I think it would benefit from a little bit of restructuring in the plot to shape it differently from the way it was published as it was coming out on Reddit with just chapters at a time. I feel like if you would make it more of like just 2 timelines, present day and then the flashback, and that going chronologically, I think would have just been a little bit more clear than the way it sort of jumps into things sometimes, and with just some overall edits bringing things into one cohesive writing style, I think that would benefit. It sounds like I'm saying a lot of negative things about this book, but I did overall enjoy this, and it has grown on me over time, particularly the scenes near the end of this book at the movie theater. That is just one of the most haunting horror scenes that I have read, and I just think about that a lot. So I did enjoy this book. I do recommend it, but I've seen a lot of people really rave about this book and really love it, and I didn't personally love it that much, but I did like it and it is growing on me over time. Next we have Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell, which I think was my least favorite of the reading vlog from what I read. What I thought this story was going to fully be about is this couple taking a romantic getaway to this cabin in this snowy isolated area, and then creepy things start happening, and I thought they were going to be stuck there and it was going to be like all in one time and place, but that is not how the story unfolds. It ends up stretching over a longer period of time after they leave the cabin. The cabin doesn't fully lose importance in the story. They end up returning to the cabin in different ways, and like that's still a part of the story, but something about them not just being stuck in this one point in time lost the tension for me. So that was more of what I was expecting getting into the story and what I got out of it that was causing me to enjoy it less. I really liked the beginning of the story. I thought it had really strong beginnings, and then I just lost interest over time. I think I would have enjoyed this more just reading it in a short form in that beginning part of it versus stretching it out to this huge big thing. I didn't get super engrossed in it, and it just wasn't one of my favorites. And then we have Tales from the Gas Station Volume 1 by Jack Townsend. This is a very unique, interesting horror comedy book that is about this guy who works at this 24-hour gas station out in the middle of nowhere where strange things happen. He ends up getting pulled into this huge, weird thing that's going on as all these weird things keep happening around him, and you're following him throughout those experiences. This one was so fun because it was so unique, so different. I loved the voice of this main character you're following. It was so witty and sarcastic and breaking the fourth wall. And I compared this book to Rick and Morty in the way that just the weird adventures come into the book and the tone of how the narrator is telling you about what's going on and just not taking things too seriously and just living in these weird rules of this weird universe that sometimes aren't even being fully followed. Like, this book breaks its own rules of the universe, and it was just a fun time. It's not going to be a personal favorite of mine because it was just a little bit too weird, a little bit too hard to follow and connect to and really love, but I did did enjoy this as just something to break up my reading experience. And so if that sounds like something that would be fun for you, I definitely would recommend it. There are also several other volumes. I think there are 4 volumes of this story. I don't believe I'm going to be continuing in them because I just can't imagine having that weird of a reading experience continue for so long. Who knows, maybe one day I will decide to pick them up, but for now I think I'm happy with just the one. Next, I'll be talking about the books that I read for Black-A-thon, which is a read-a-thon that is hosted throughout the month of October that is designed to read thriller, horror, crime, mystery, true crime, all of the things, all of those types of books written by Black authors. This is a read-a-thon that was created by Bree from Luck Booktition, and I actually read 3 books, but one was on audio, so there's only 2 in my hands right now. First, I'll talk about the one that I read on audio, which was The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. This was my first book from Tiffany D. Jackson, and I have heard amazing things about this author, so I was very excited to check this out. And it is a retelling of Carrie, which I thought would also be really fun since that's a story that I am somewhat familiar with, having seen the movie adaptations, not actually reading the book though, but I'm familiar enough with the story. I would definitely recommend listening to this one on audio. That is how I had it recommended to me. I heard a lot of people saying the audio was really good, and I fully trusted that, and I'm glad that I did that because the audiobook experience was really solid for this one. There are a lot of different elements with it. There are different narrators. There's this podcast element to the story as well, and it just was brought to life really well. There are also like sound effects in it, like a swoosh every time you're like switching perspectives, and just some interesting things. Like, it was just a really well produced audiobook. If you're familiar with the story of Carrie, it's pretty much just a retelling of that, but with some contemporary themes layered into it around race and other social issues. In this story, you're following this character named Maddie, and she is a biracial girl who is white passing until one day she gets caught out at school in the rain and it reveals her true hair, and then everyone all of a sudden knows she's biracial, and it's this big embarrassing moment for her because she has been hiding that her whole life, and her father has been instilling that in her, and she's got a lot of racist people at her school, so it totally makes sense why she was hiding that. And then you're following her story after that as she is dealing with all this prejudice. She is going to a high school where they have segregated proms, and all these terrible things just keep happening in the build up to that night. And if you're familiar with the story of Carrie, you can probably guess where the story is going to go. This wasn't a book that I was going into expecting surprises. Like, I knew what I was getting into this one because I know the story of Carrie and that's the point of it, but I really thought this was a super solid retelling. I love just the way Tiffany D. Jackson really brought the story into contemporary times and the way she layered in new themes to a story that a lot of people are familiar with. I just thought she did an excellent job with it. Everyone's been raving about this book. They are correct. It is very good. Definitely recommend, and absolutely recommend the audiobook experience. Next up, we have Ace of Spades. This is a YA queer thriller that is set at a boarding school, so it has dark academia vibes. There's all these different buzzwords for it, and it was right up my alley. I had so much fun with this one. In the story, you get 2 perspectives. You're following Devon and Chiamaka, and both of them end up being prefects, I think is what you call it, at the boarding school. They're like the top of their class, and they go to this really prestigious academy. Devon is kind of surprised that he is one of the top ones. Chiamaka has always worked really hard, so she like worked for that position, but Devon was a little bit surprised. And then weird things start happening to them. They start getting blackmailed a lot. These messages start getting sent out to everyone in their school coming from this person Ace, and they don't know why they're being targeted or who's targeting them, but they are coming together to try to figure out what's going on and put a stop to it before it ruins their lives. The comp titles for this one and how it was marketed was Get Out meets Gossip Girl, and I haven't actually seen Gossip Girl, but I'm familiar with the story of that one, and from what I know of that, and I have seen Get Out many times, love that movie. This was a very good, accurate mesh of those things. A lot of times books get comped to Get Out and then it's just not a great comp, but this one I thought was a really good comp for that. If you enjoy YA thrillers, I think you're really going to enjoy this one. It is a little bit longer, but it reads very, very quickly. I flew through this book. I love YA thrillers. I really don't read enough of them. I watch a lot of YA thriller TV shows. Like, I fly through YA thriller series all the time, but I don't pick up as many YA thriller books. I usually am picking up more YA horror books, and I guess this actually is also horror. I'm really not sure if it got marketed more as thriller or horror, but it is both thriller and horror at the same time. It's a good mash of both of those two. But yeah, this definitely makes me want to pick up more YA thriller books as well. well because I just have so much fun with them. And then we have When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen, which I actually spoke about in a previous video. Can't remember what video it was. I'll put it right here so you can check that out if you want to hear me talk about it. Oh, I think it was a horror recommendations video that I did because I had just finished this book and I really wanted to talk about it in that grouping of horror recommendations because I didn't know if it'd be another 6 or 8 months before I did another one, and I really enjoyed this one and definitely wanted to recommend it. So you've already heard I did enjoy this book. I really enjoyed so much of what I read this month. It was really a pretty good reading month. Even though I didn't read a ton, did have a lot of good reads. This is a story about this woman who is returning to her former friend's wedding. She is a black woman, her friend is a white woman, and she is having a wedding on a plantation. There's also another friend of theirs who's coming to the wedding, and so she kind of wants to remedy with him, which is why she's coming. And the best way to describe this book is to say that history comes back to slap them all in the face at this occasion. It was so very good. The writing in this one was amazing, so lush, just written beautifully. The atmosphere was just built so wonderfully. Like, I felt the tone of this book so well. I could see everything, I could feel everything. All of my senses were activated with the writing. And then the direction that the story goes, I also just thought played out so well. I loved the horror elements of it. I just love the depictions of the ending scenes. I think it was just done super well. And for all of these books, this Ace of Spades and The Weight of Blood, they were all really great at balancing a social commentary in the story as well. I really love when thriller or horror books can have a really strong social commentary in them, and all three of these did a great job at tackling that. So if you like books like that and you haven't checked out any of these, definitely recommend all of them. Next up, we have Spy Family Volume 3 by Tatsuya Endo. I have been reading this manga series. It's my first manga series and I'm loving them. I love them so much. And this one, I'm trying to remember because I read this earlier in the month, but I think this one focuses a lot on the wife, which makes sense because she is on the cover of this one. I won't give you full details about them because it is the third volume in a series, but this is a overall manga series about this guy who is a spy and he has to infiltrate this academy to get close to this guy. So he has to create this fake family. So he gets a fake wife and a fake kid, but unbeknownst to him, the fake wife is an assassin and the fake daughter is a telepath. So they all have these interesting secrets they're hiding from one another. It's a found family story and it is very fun, very cute, action-packed too, plenty of action going on in them. And I just really love following this family. So I will be still continuing on in the series. I have volumes 4 and 5 to read next. I already own those. And then assuming that I still continue loving them, I will still keep picking up the other volumes because they are just so much fun and they're also really cute little books to have on my shelves. And then finally we have the book that was my buddy read for the 24-hour horror-a-thon this month, and that is Autumncrow by Cameron Chaney. In case you don't know, I host a read-a-thon called the 24-hour horror-a-thon, which is a 24-hour read-a-thon where we read horror books and we have a buddy read. This time we also had a buddy watch, which was so much fun. There's a Discord, there's all the details. They'll be in the description below if you want to hear about it, and make sure you can check out the next round. Right now the plan is to still do it bi-monthly, so the next round is planned for December, so more details to come on what our buddy read will be, if we'll have a buddy watch, who the co-host will be, and all of that information will be coming soon. But this was the buddy read for the October round and I absolutely loved this book. I was so surprised I loved it as much as I did because I kind of thought, just based off of the cover and just assumptions that I had made about this, for some reason I just thought it was going to be super middle grade-y and like not scary and just not something I was going to really love. I thought I would like it, but I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I did, and I really liked this. It is a short story collection and I didn't absolutely love every single story in this, so that is what holds me back from a 5-star rating. And if you'll notice, I'm still not really rating books. I don't think I really set a rating for any books that I read this month because I didn't have any like in my face 5 stars, but this is probably the closest thing to a 5-star that I had this month because I really loved these stories. I loved the writing style of the stories. They all had this cozy horror tone to them. Some of them darker than others, I will say. Some of them more morose than others, but they just all came together really well. What this is about is, it is, I think, 8 stories. Yeah, 8 stories that are all set in this town, Autumncrow, and they're all over the Halloween time. Autumncrow is this weird town where weird things happen and you're following different characters and different stories of things that are going on in Autumncrow. And it was just such a wonderful time. I read it so quickly because I was just so immersed in it, and I really highly recommend checking this one out. It is absolutely the perfect October read. I think you could still read it in November or any other time of the year, but I really enjoyed reading in October. And generally this got really great reception with the participants of the 24-hour horror-a-thon. We chatted about this one in the Discord, so you could still go back and review the chat in there if you wanted to. We hide spoilers in there, so you're totally good to go in there without spoilers. But a lot of people were giving this 4 stars, 5 stars, 4.5 stars. Many people were enjoying this one, which was so great. I'm glad so many people had fun with this one because I definitely did too. And if I had to pick my favorite stories in this one, it's kind of hard because there were so many that I really liked. But my top 3 favorites were Burnt Brownies, Frost, and Saving Face. They were just so good. And this is definitely a book I can see myself revisiting and reading again. I feel like this is a book that I would even maybe read like every Halloween just to get me in the Halloween spirit because I just truly loved it so much. So maybe it was a 5 star. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've read a short story collection and ended up enjoying all of it. You know, I've been just having so much trouble with anthologies that I've been trying to pick up, but with this one being all from one author and all tied together with a theme, that really worked for me. So I'm gonna be looking for more short story collections like that. So if you have any recommendations, definitely let me know down below. So that is it for all the books that I read in October. Like I said, it was a more brief reading month. Didn't read as many books as I was hoping to, but I did have a lot of good reads and I just had a lot of good things happening in my life. I had a lot of good time in real life with friends and family, and it was just nice to have a nice, more balanced month this month. Let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of these books. Let me know what you think of them, and let me know what your favorite read was from the month of October. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!